Precious Chukudi. We begin with the front pages of the papers this morning, starting off with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with fare hike. Travelers, commuters groan as fuel scarcity bites harder. Rider says we have adopted new strategy to end shortage, and that's coming from Meman. To take a few days to eliminate queues, and that's coming from NMPC. Task force raids filling stations in Ilorin, warns against hoarding, as Lagos government warns against creating gridlock on roads. Terrorism financing, court treats federal government over shoddy prosecution of Tukur Mamu, and stories about banks expand the loan size by 57% to 37.2 trillion naira. DSTv GOTV rate hike. Tribunal stops multi-choice. $10 billion required annually for 10 years to fix power sector. That's coming from the federal government. Illegal forex trading. Court okays EFCC's request to freeze 1,146 bank accounts. We take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with debt market monopoly hurts Nigerians as a fuel subsidy backfires. And Nigeria begs US to repatriate more stolen funds. African heads of state canvass $120 billion for continent development. That controversial Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway project is an editorial. You can read more on that. Obaseki announces 70,000 naira minimum wage for workers. EFCC gets not to freeze 1,146 bank accounts over FX crisis. 8 million households to pay more for prepaid meters as NEC deregulates the sector. Royal complicity, how monarchs, crooked officials fuel illegal mining insecurity in Southwest. No vacancy in Nassau Rock, Ganduje tells Kwankwaso others. And let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with money laundering probe. EFCC swoops on 1,146 bank accounts. Court okays freezing of accounts for unauthorized forex dealing, terror financing. We need $100 billion in 10 years to fix electricity, says Minister. Petrol scarcity leave Nigerians stranded. Queues linger in Lagos, Abuja, major cities. Stories above pro EFCC, pro Yaya Bello protesters at agency quarters. How I received $600,000 for Emefiele, ex-CBN director tells court. Edo workers to earn 70,000 naira minimum wage from May. Aida Tiwa gets APC certificate of return. We take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with petrol hits 800 naira as 240 million liters versus arrive. Rider says 5 tanker vessels offloading PMS at Lagos port. Independent marketers sell over 800 naira per liter. Black marketers charge 1,200 per liter. Motorists groan. Commuters lament rising transport fare. Tinubu will end economic sabotage, Shetima tells African leaders. Nurse accuses Lagos hospital of negligence over wife son's death. 1.4 million UTME candidates scored below 200, and that's coming from JAM. $2.4 billion forex claim fictitious, says CBN. Stories above. Federal government begins fresh bid rounds for oil blocks. Customers panic as CBN bans OPay, PAMPay, others new accounts. And lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, Edo workers hail Obaseki over 70,000 naira minimum wage. That's what we can take on the front pages of the papers. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. Alright, welcome back. If you're just joining me, still today in the news on Vanguard Live, I am Precious Chukudi. Joining me to talk about some of the stories on the front pages of the papers this morning is Mr. Dayo Akintobi, publisher of Ilikoji Today, Kejo Today, Lekki Today. It's good to have you join me this morning, sir.
It's always a pleasure to be here. It's a miracle that I'm actually all here in light of what's happening out there with traffic, gridlock from fuel scarcity.
Yeah.
Amazing.
First, how are you dealing with it?
Like deja vu all over again in the city are over, but obviously it's not so. If you look at the last couple of days, it's been real mayhem out on the streets of Lagos. Yeah, Abuja is even worse hit. And marketers are having a field day. Many petrol stations don't have, and the few that have, their overrun. There are very few people who could make it into work today. Transport has gone. There are very few buses on the road. fewer taxis, fewer Ubers, because people just can't get fuel. There's no fuel in the system.
All right. We hear on that reinvent.
Well, one thing I've noticed is that anytime this kind of crisis occurs and there's no clear-cut explanation, it's usually because prices are about to go up. So some petrol station owners have taken a cue from that to where once they know price is about to go up, so that they can make some extra money, they hoard their supply and wait for the increase to be announced. So I mean, of course, it's not fair to Nigerians in general and to those of us who depend on transportation and fuel to move around. But that's capitalism. Capitalism is survival of the fittest. As long as nobody's doing anything illegal. Although, if a petrol station has fuel, I don't think you can force him to sell. He doesn't want to sell. But at the same time, you look at it and you say, isn't there a good or good take consideration that everything is all about just profit? So NNPC is saying this is all panic buying, that there's enough fuel in the system to go around everybody, our daily needs in Nigeria, and that this is just happening because people are speculating that the price is about to go up. Why is the price about to go up? Because the cost of crude oil has gone up. When the cost of crude oil goes up, by the time you refine it, the cost of refined fuel also must go up. That's why they are saying the subsidy has come back. Because look, in the last several months, price of oil has increased. Right now, it's trading for just slightly under $100 a barrel. But the price is still at $600 that the government put it. So government is paying subsidy. So the concern is, how long can government continue to pay it and how much can they pay? Remember the other day, El-Rufai was saying that the subsidy they are paying now is even more than what they were paying under Buhari administration. So whether it's sustainable or not, we don't know. But the point is, there might be an price hike in the offing. And as such, these business people are looking at that and saying, I can capitalize on that, because if I bought it low and the price goes up and I get to sell my old stock at the new price, I can double my investment overnight. That's what business is all about. It's about seeking opportunities. Businessmen don't operate with sentiment and say, oh, but my poor people don't have fuel, transport will go up. No, business people look at how can I exploit opportunities to make more money. That's the whole point of business. So that's what governments are there for. Governments are to protect us from rapacious capitalists whose only purpose in life is greed to maximize profit. That's where government comes in as a buffer between the greedy capitalist and the common man. So government has to intervene from that.
All right, okay. You said the government is, somehow subsidizing this petrol, but like the president said, they have to take out fuel subsidy to avoid bankruptcy. So without like he's saying they're not paying for subsidy. I heard in Sokoto they're paying about 2,000 naira to buy for a liter, and I'm like, what's going on? What is really going on? But you said government needs to intervene.
Yes.
What ways do you think that we can actually make this fuel scarcity pass? Because it's like, you just experience fuel scarcity.
Well, the fastest and most forthright, straightforward way to end fuel scarcity is to get all our refineries working. Period. It's that simple. If Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna refineries can come online, and Dangote is also online, we will fuel scarcity.
It's so hard to just keep these refineries working.
Well, there's a lot of dynamics involved in that. A lot of it is political. A lot of it is deal making. A lot of it is exploitation. But getting refineries to work is not rocket science. We were able to build them in the beginning. We built them decades ago. So if we could build them from scratch, maintaining them, repairing them should not be that difficult. But it's been a bugbear for several years, and we've not been able to fix these things. So I think there's some sabotage at work for whatever reasons. There's some sabotage at work relating to getting those refineries. Remember, even before the last administration went out, they promised that, I think it was Kaduna Refinery, would produce. They even at one point turned on the lights and said it's ready to go. And we still haven't seen a drop of fuel come out of any of those refineries. Was it Kaduna or was it Warri? One of them, that they said the repair work had been finished. They turned on the lights one night and they said, hey, we are commissioning it, it's ready to go. So far, one drop of fuel hasn't come out of it yet. So that's the quickest way to resolve fuel scarcity issues, is that the oil that we pull up from the ground in the Niger Delta. We transport it to our own refineries, we refine it there, and we push the finished products, petrol, kerosene, aviation fuel, and diesel, push those products back out into the Nigerian market. Straight away, fuel queues will disappear. Probably prices will reduce as well because we no longer have to pay for shipping, for demurrage, for things like that. That's the quickest way. Having said that, well, in terms of what the president said, I remember that I think July 31, when he was interviewed about this fuel subsidy thing, he said if fuel subsidy will work, it hopes it will work, government will intervene. So I think quietly government has intervened because they saw it wasn't working the way they had anticipated. I think that intervention now is the fact that we are still paying 600 naira at the pump officially. That is government intervention because realistically, the market value, the landed cost of fuel in Nigeria today should be about 1,000 naira. But obviously, we know what will happen if fuel cost at the pump is 1,000. When we already have inflation, we already have all kinds of problems we're grappling with. If price of fuel were to go up that high, it would be unbearable for Nigerians and it could cause political unrest, which is why the government is saying no. We need to cushion the effect. And so quietly they put back subsidy in. They haven't admitted that they've done it, but if you just look at the numbers, a simple Google search will tell you what the landed cost of fuel is today, and you realize it's a lot more than what we're paying for it at the pump. So I think the president could man up and openly admit the fact that, okay, perhaps I was wrong. That's what leadership is all. Perhaps I was wrong when I said subsidy is gone. We need to remove it, but perhaps the timing was wrong. Perhaps the implementation was wrong. Perhaps. So you can tell Nigerians and say, okay, so we found out the time is not right. We found out we didn't do it the right way. We found out this. We found out that. So these are the steps we've taken. Bear with us, and Nigerians will bear with. We're very patient, tolerant people. We're forbearing. Yes, we have, and we will continue to do so.
All right, moving on now. The Federal High Court Abuja has reprimanded the federal government for lack of diligent prosecution in charge filed against Tukur Mamu, publisher of a Desert Herald newspaper. What's your take?
Well, yeah, this gentleman is supposed to have been or accused of terrorism financing and negotiating with terrorists and various things like that. And he was picked up by the federal government on charges of terrorism. And for some reason, there seems to have been a lackadaisical attitude towards his prosecution, which is what gives people a lot of mouth to speculate that is government really serious about fighting terrorism. And you have somebody you've identified clearly as being suspected of terroristic activity or support for terroristic activity, and you've got somebody, because remember, the excuse all this time has been we don't know who they are, they're like ghosts, they're phantoms, they just come in the middle of the night, do their thing, and they go away, we don't know who we're fighting. So now you've got somebody that you claim you have evidence that he's involved in this or involved in supporting. I'm not saying he's carrying the gun himself and going to various villages and kidnapping people and killing people, no, but probably through his publication or whatever the case may be, they've been able to link him to terrorism financing, to negotiating with terrorists and things like that. So one would expect that once you've got a physical person, you would prosecute him expeditiously. You would be very, very harsh about his prosecution, and if convicted, you would throw the book at him to serve as an example for all the others who are out there, that a deterrent to others that we are serious about fighting this thing. Look at what happened when they went to court yesterday. The government's lawyer disappeared. He was there in the morning at the beginning of the court day before they called their case. When it was time for their case to be called, the case of this terrorist to be called, his lawyer was there. They couldn't find the government lawyer. The terrorist, the accused man's lawyer, and I said, okay, let's wait a little while. So they stepped down the case, did a couple more cases, read some judgments, did some other things, and they called the case again, still couldn't find him anywhere. So the judge is looking and he said, are you people serious at all? And this probably the second or third time they've been getting continuances. Let's get another date. We're not ready yet. We are this. So the judge just got fed up yesterday and said, what is this? Especially in light of how serious this terrorism issue is, this banditry, this kidnapping, this maiming and killing and all kinds of things that are going on across the country. One would expect that you finally grab somebody that you can link to some of this activity, that you would want to prosecute him speedily and make him an example to serve as a deterrent to others. So why would it now be that is now a slipshod, lackadaisical, nonchalant type attitude towards prosecuting him, to where government lawyer is not showing up or can't be found when the case is called. So that's what got the judge's goat, and he now said, this is nonsense. So of course, the defendant's lawyer took advantage of that and now requested that, let his client, since government is wasting time and dragging feet about this thing, he would prefer his client to be moved out of EFCC custody and I think put in Kuje prison, where the conditions are a bit better, where he can meet with his lawyers, his family can visit him and things like that. So they used that opportunity to put up that motion, and I believe the judge is going to consider that, because it looks to him like the government is not serious.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move ahead. And now the Competition and Consumer Protection CPP Tribunal sitting in Abuja has restrained MultiChoice Nigeria Limited from going ahead with its plan to increase tariff and cost of its product. I mean, this is coming from a time when they were saying, that we need to be doing like a pay-per-view type of arrangement. But do you think that kind of thing can work here in Nigeria? And of course, what do you think about the government literally restraining them, from increasing their tariffs?
It's absolutely wrong for the government to have done that. Let me shock Nigeria. shock Nigerians. Yes, because I know people will say, why is it in this day and age when everything is expensive that DSTv is now increasing its prices? Let me tell you something. DSTv is a private business, right? Investors put their hard-earned money together, floated this business. They are doing business in a capitalistic country. No sentiment involved. They can charge whatever they want for their product. It's you, the consumer, that will choose with your wallet whether you want to buy their service or not, right? So if they say they want 1 million naira for their monthly subscription, nobody has right to tell them they can't charge that, because they are the ones that know what they invested to set up their business. The way we tell them we don't accept their price increase is what? We seek alternatives. The problem for us in Nigeria is we don't have competition. So DSTv is a mere monopoly. There are one or two other smaller competitors, but they don't offer football. They don't offer. I tell you this, a lot of people have gone off subscription for satellite TV and have moved to streaming services. They watch football through Netflix, through YouTube, through streaming services on their phones. There are other free-to-air ways that you can watch CNN and watch programs and things that you don't have to subscribe. DSTv has lost a lot of subscribers over the years simply because people are seeking cheaper alternatives. Where government should step in, as far as I'm concerned, is to create an enabling environment for competitors to come in. Because this sends a wrong message to the international community. We are crying for foreign direct investment every day. Then the foreigners who want to bring their businesses here will look and say, so if we decide that market forces have made our products go up in price and we want to increase price, government will tell us we can't increase. They won't come. They will look at the example that they have done and they will say, that means that we can be restricted. Because, Precious, think about it. Cost of electricity has gone up. Tariff, right? Cost of diesel has gone up. Cost of transportation, cost of paper in the market has gone up. How do you think DSTv can continue to operate when it has to buy fuel to power its generators, it has to buy electricity? So all of its costs have gone up. How do you think that it will not raise its prices? You are now using the coercive forces of government to say you can't increase your prices. It's absolutely horrendous. It was a poor decision on the part of the government and it will not stand. And it runs the risk of discouraging other businesses from coming to this country at a time when we are desperately looking for foreign investment. What Nigerian subscribers should do is vote with their wallet and go elsewhere and send a resounding message to DSTv that DSTv will now look and say, we need subscribers to keep in business. So we have to find a way to adjust these cost increases. Nobody is saying their costs have not gone up, but they have to find ways by which they can cut costs. Maybe lay off some staff, maybe reduce the number of offices, maybe there are things they can do that they will cut prices. But you can't force them to do that by legislation. Well, the way to force them to do that is by competition. When their subscribers start living in droves and they say, our bottom line is we won't be able to keep up if all these people are going because our revenue is dropping. So they will start scrambling. Remember what happened in the day and age of Glo, when Glo came with per second billing, when MTN said they couldn't do per second billing. As soon as Glo came in and said we can do per second billing, MTN immediately found a way. After years, I said we can't do it. They found a way to do it. Otherwise, they would have lost customers. So that's what's going to happen here, is that once DSTv raises its prices, it will lose, I don't want to say significant, but it will lose customers. There are some who will say, I can't afford to pay this, especially at the time when everything's expensive, so that person will subscribe. I know 2 people whose whose subscription came due yesterday, they didn't renew. In spite of the fact that the new thing is not coming until tomorrow, they didn't renew. They said they can't afford it. So when enough people don't renew, DSTv on its own volition, which is what free market capitalism is all about, government intervention should be limited. It shouldn't use its coercive powers to now say you can't raise your prices on something that is I kid you not, let's not be sentimental. Cable television, satellite, it's a luxury. It's a luxury. It's not a staple. It's not food. It's not the air we breathe. It's not transport. It's a luxury. So those who can afford it will pay for it. The others should find an alternative. It's not by force to have satellite TV. If you can't afford it, fine, watch free-to-air TV. We still have MTA. We still have all these televisions that are free-to-air. Do you understand my point? So no, I don't agree. I think the Consumer Protection Agency is very wrong in that step.
All right. Sorry. So one of the things that people have always, the argument has always been that we need to run a pay-per-view type of arrangement in Nigeria. Do you think it can work?
Well, I've seen it work in more developed countries. The technology does exist. The challenge we would have here is the payment methodology and how to compute the value of what you have used, because the way we are set up now, we prepay. Do you understand? We pay ahead. In a pay-per-view situation, you are either paying as and when you view or after you have viewed. So there is some element of a trust factor involved. Here, look at how we are being shysted by the distribution companies because we prepay for power. So they said if you don't get 20 hours of power per month, you will pay only band B. But I've already paid 225 for band A up front. They've collected the 20,000 naira from me for 80 units at 225. But when the month has ended, I looked at my day, I didn't get 20 hours for maybe 2 or 3 days out of a whole month. How do I collect that money back? That's the challenge of pay-per-view, is that when you are paying per view, at the moment you want to watch, you can pay for that program. Or you watch that program, then afterwards they bill you for what you watch, because it's too cumbersome that each time you want to watch a program, you bring out your card, you start have you tried to pay online? I tried to pay the electricity online and I went through all kinds of hurdles. So try and imagine that every time you want to watch news, on your phone, try to pay 20 kobo. You want to watch so it's there has to be a way to simplify the technology to make it happen. It's not that it can't happen. You can pay per view, but I don't think we have the platforms in place yet that make it easy to implement.
All right, moving on. Still talking, like you mentioned, the power sector. You were talking about, the federal government has said that for the power sector to be revived and perform optimally, it needs $10 billion annually for 10 years. What do you make of that?
Well, because investment in the power sector over the years has been so poor, it's not kept up, it's not kept pace with population explosion, it's not kept pace with technological advancements, it's not kept pace with urban sprawl in terms of how widespread people are living now. So it won't surprise me if we take that that's a lot of money, 10 billion a year for 10 years, that's 100 billion, and it's dollars, not naira. But electricity, power infrastructure is not cheap. It's very expensive. And because we've left it for so many years without upgrading, without expanding, so it won't surprise me if it does require quite a lot of money to get it up to par. Here's the one thing I know. The sector does need investment. And if the right investment is put in and we have the right power supply, people will happily pay. All this band-aid at this amount, why people are complaining, is because in spite of the increase in tariff, we're not seeing a commensurate increase in power supply because they've not invested in the sector. So if they did the other way around, where they invested in the sector, improved the services, before they now increase the rates, people won't complain. I can guarantee you that if we're getting uninterrupted power supply, and businesses can run and people can be comfortable in their homes, and people can go to work and you can power your businesses and income is flowing, people will not complain about tariff hikes. But because the sector is still very, very inefficient, so we do need to cure the inefficiency of the system, and the way to do it, I believe, is to invest in the sector, to upgrade the facilities. We need to build more power plants. The existing ones need to be maintained, they need to be improved, they need to be refurbished. All those things take a humongous amount of money. To even just build one power plant is billions of dollars. So you can imagine. So I generally concur with that notion, but the problem in Nigeria, of course, is the issue of corruption, the issue of leakages, contract inflation. So is that 10 billion actually the actual value, or is it 4 billion that's been inflated to 10 billion? We are lay people, we don't know. When was the last time you priced a nuclear reactor? When was the last time you went to market to try and price any of the components that they use, mercury rods or whatever it is they use to do their thing? So we don't know. So that 10 billion is an abstract number to you and me. It doesn't really make sense. We can't decipher whether it is accurate or if it is inflated or if it is under calculated or over. We don't know. So they're just throwing numbers out there that have no meaning to the average Nigerian. But all we just say is whatever is going to take in terms of cost, political will, and altruism, whatever it will take to resolve this problem, please just do it. Enough already.
All right, let's take a look at Mr. and Mrs. And Mr. is speaking, says, couples call each other honey, but some don't know the full meaning. The man is the honey pot, and Mrs. replies, is asking Mr. and says, and the woman, and Mr. says, the honey mop.
Okay.
The man is the honey pot,
and the Mrs. is the honey mop.
So
meaning she does the cleaning and the man with the pot does the eating. All right, more power to Mr.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Daya Akintobi, publisher of the Page Today, Lekki Today, and Ikeja Today. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
My pleasure, always. My pleasure.
Also, remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. Find out today's stories. Go